Some crowns were never meant for the living. Subscribe if you want more dark stories about forgotten artifacts, silent rituals, and objects that remember who they were made for. These are not fairy tales. They are what history left behind. The crown was never worn in daylight. It was thin, fragile, and made of soft gold, shaped not to impress but to rest gently on a small head. No jewels, no symbols of power, only delicate patterns pressed into the metal, flowers that never fully bloomed, circles that never closed. It had been buried with children from noble families centuries ago, placed on them during funerals and sealed beneath stone before grief had time to cool. Its purpose was simple: to mark the dead, and only the dead. When it was unearthed during a controlled excavation beneath a ruined chapel, the archaeologists were careful. They noted the size immediately: too small for an adult, too deliberate to be decorative. The burial chamber contained no body, only traces of fabric long turned to dust, and the crown resting where a head had once been. It was cataloged, cleaned, and transferred to a regional museum. That was when the sounds began. The first night guard reported hearing footsteps shortly after midnight. Light, uneven steps echoing across the marble floor. Too soft to belong to an adult. Too deliberate to be dismissed as settling wood or air movement. When he followed the sound, it stopped just outside the exhibition hall where the crown was displayed. Nothing was there. The second night, another guard heard it too. Slow pacing, a pause, then the faint sound of something brushing against glass. He checked the cameras and saw nothing out of place. The crown sat beneath its display light, motionless and intact. By the end of the week, no guard wanted the night shift. The footsteps became more consistent. Always after midnight, always near the same hall. Sometimes they sounded like running, sometimes like standing still and shifting weight from one foot to the other. One guard described hearing a quiet metallic sound, as if something thin and soft was being touched repeatedly. Museum staff dismissed the reports until a camera recorded something it shouldn't have. At 2:17 a.m., one of the security cameras flickered. For less than 2 seconds, the reflection in the glass of the display case changed. A shape appeared where nothing had been before, a small shadow, low to the ground, leaning forward as if peering into the case. The crown did not move, but the shadow did. It tilted its head. The footage was reviewed repeatedly. No person appeared on the feed. No entry or exit was recorded. The shadow had no clear source, no matching silhouette elsewhere in the room. It appeared only in the glass, as though it existed on the wrong side of the reflection. After that, the museum closed the hall at night. The footsteps continued anyway. Staff began noticing small details during the day. Smudges on the glass at a height that made no sense. Finger-like marks that were too small to belong to an adult. The temperature near the display case was consistently lower than the surrounding rooms, no matter the season. One curator claimed the crown looked different in the morning. Not damaged, not altered, simply repositioned, as though it had been carefully adjusted during the night. The museum attempted to move it into storage. The night before the transfer, every motion sensor in the hall activated at once. Alarms triggered. Security rushed in to find the room empty. The crown was still inside its case, perfectly centered. The footsteps stopped that night. When the crown was returned to storage beneath the museum, sealed in darkness, the cameras recorded nothing unusual. No sonidos, no movement, no sounds. The exhibition hall felt normal again. Later, a historian uncovered a line in a damaged manuscript related to the burial practice. It explained that the crown was not meant as an honor, but as a boundary, a way to mark those who were not supposed to wander. Removing it from its resting place was believed to invite the child to look for it, not to reclaim it, but to remember. The crown remains locked away now, unseen and undocumented by the public. No museum plans to display it again. No official statement explains why. But guards who work the underground levels still avoid one corridor at night. They say that sometimes when the lights are low and the building is quiet, they hear small footsteps moving carefully through the dark and stopping right where the crown is kept. After the crown was removed from public view, the museum returned to its routine on the surface. Visitors came and went. New exhibitions opened. The incident was quietly categorized as a technical anomaly, filed away under internal reports that no one outside the staff would ever read. Below ground, nothing felt routine. The storage level where the crown was kept was climate-controlled, windowless, and rarely visited. Rows of shelves held artifacts wrapped in linen and sealed boxes, each labeled and cataloged. The crown was placed inside a reinforced case, padded carefully, its thin gold rim resting exactly as it had been found centuries earlier. For several nights, there were no disturbances. Then the guards began to notice the pauses. Cameras showed long stretches of nothing, followed by brief moments where motion sensors activated without cause. Not enough movement to trigger alarms, just enough to be logged. The timestamps were always the same, just after midnight. The footage showed empty corridors, but the audio carried something faint and rhythmic, like soft steps against stone. No voices, no crying, only movement. One guard, stationed alone during a late shift, reported hearing something close behind him while checking the storage corridor. He described it as the sound of bare feet stopping abruptly when he turned around. The hallway was empty, but the air felt heavier near the sealed case that held the crown, colder than the surrounding rooms. When he returned to the control room, he noticed something else. The temperature sensor inside the crown's case had dropped several degrees, despite no change in the climate system. Maintenance found nothing wrong. Over time, subtle changes accumulated. Dust disturbed near the base of the storage shelves. Faint impressions that looked like small footprints, too shallow to be convincing, too consistent to ignore. They never led anywhere. They simply appeared and faded between inspections. A junior archivist was the first to suggest that the crown was not reacting to the museum, but to attention. She noted that disturbances increased after documentation sessions, when the case was opened briefly for inspection. On those days, the footsteps were louder. The sensors triggered more often. On weeks when the artifact was left completely alone, the activity diminished, as if something was waiting. One night, a single camera recorded an anomaly similar to the one seen in the exhibition hall months earlier. The corridor was empty, but the polished surface of a metal cabinet reflected a shape moving low to the ground. It did not resemble a full figure, only a partial outline, small and uneven, passing slowly through the frame. The crown's case remained closed. No alarm sounded. The reflection vanished after 3 seconds. The footage was never officially archived. Shortly afterward, a decision was made. The crown would be removed from the museum entirely, not transferred to another institution, not loaned. It would be returned to a sealed repository beneath the original excavation site, where it would remain untouched and undocumented. The transport occurred during daylight, with no public record. The crown was packed, sealed, and escorted by specialists who never stayed long enough to ask questions. Once it was placed underground again, beneath layers of stone and earth, the museum reported a complete end to the disturbances. No more footsteps, no more shadows, no unexplained drops in temperature. Years have passed since then. The crown has not been displayed again. Its catalog number leads nowhere. Its photographs are missing from the archive. Officially, it is considered an item of uncertain provenance, removed from circulation for preservation reasons. But those who work the night shifts during that time remember the pattern. They remember that the sounds only began when the crown was placed under lights, behind glass, where living eyes could rest on it. They remember how the footsteps always stopped near the case, never wandering beyond it, as if whatever followed the crown did not want to leave, only to stand close and wait. Some of the older guards still speak about it quietly. Years later, usually after midnight shifts when the building feels too large and too silent. They don't argue about whether something supernatural happened. They argue about what the crown was meant to do. Historical records describe it as ceremonial, thin gold, light enough not to weigh down a child's head in death. It was never worn by the living, never blessed for protection, never buried permanently. It was placed, displayed during mourning, and then removed before the tomb was sealed. Even in its own time, it was not allowed to stay. One retired curator once said that the crown was not an honor, but a marker, a signal. Gold, after all, does not decay. It remembers shape. It remembers touch. The children who wore it were never meant to keep it. That idea explains something many reports never did. The footsteps were never frantic, never playful. They were slow, deliberate, measured, like someone pacing a room they knew well. The shadow on the glass never reached toward the crown. It leaned close, as if inspecting the space around it, checking its boundaries, as if asking why it had been moved. Long after the crown was returned underground, one final incident occurred. A construction crew working near the old excavation site reported hearing sounds beneath the stone floor late in the evening. Soft, repeating taps. Not digging, not scraping, just pressure released and reapplied directly below where the crown had been sealed. The sound stopped when work was paused. They resumed when drilling began again. The project was abandoned within a week, officially due to structural concerns. The site was reinforced, sealed, and marked as restricted. No further attempts were made to reopen it. Today, the museum still owns the record of the crown, at least on paper. But there is no location listed, no image attached, no description beyond a single line written by hand at the bottom of an old report. Object responds to attention. Do not display. And perhaps that is the most unsettling part. Not that something followed the crown. Not that footsteps echoed where no child stood. But that everything stopped the moment it was returned to darkness. As if whatever remained had finally been allowed to rest. As long as no one ever tried to look at it again. In the end, the crown was not destroyed, melted down, or lost to time. It was simply placed where it had always belonged, away from light, away from eyes, away from curiosity. Those who were involved in sealing it never spoke publicly about the final moments. But one man later admitted that as the last stone was lowered into place, the air in the chamber felt lighter, as if a held breath had finally been released. No footsteps followed them out. No shadows lingered on the walls. Since then, there have been no reports, no sounds, no disturbances, no children's steps echoing through empty halls, only silence. And perhaps that silence is the warning. Some artifacts are not cursed. They are incomplete stories. They wait, not for belief, but for attention. And the moment we give it to them, they remember who they were made for.